All right, so here I am. I'm on the very last row of my foot. I've worked 49 stitches. I like to make my foot, if I'm making these for myself, 50 stitches before I switch colors. So I've done 49. Before I begin the toe, I will actually switch to 4 needles instead of 3. So now what I've done is I have half my stitches, so this is the front of my sock here, so half of my stitches on 2 needles and the back half of my stitches on 2 other needles. So I'm just working with 4 stitches. So now when I'm doing my rounded toe decreases, I'll be doing them at the beginning and end of a needle instead of in between. So you know what, actually I'm going to I wanted to add in my gray, my contrast color. Oops. So I'm going to take out a few stitches here since I forgot. And this is, you know, knitting is not perfect. I do this all the time. I'll just keep knitting and then I'll realize, oh shucks, I should have added in that other color, and I just go back. It's really not hard to take out a couple stitches. So there's 6 stitches. I'm going to now add my contrast color in just like I did before. I'm now in position to begin my contrast color. I'm working the first row of my toe. Like I said, because I want the gray to be a little bit longer in my toe, I'm going to do 2 rows of stockinette stitch before I start my decreases. This is totally optional. If you don't want that much of a contrast in your toe, then by all means just go right into your decreases. That's just how I like to do it, because my toe is a little bit shorter than I feel I like. So I just like to add a little bit more of that contrast color in there. So what I'm going to do now, I am done with my main color here. I'm going to just switch these guys around. And in my opinion, it doesn't matter if you switch to make it go over or under. I don't think it matters, but so now I'm going to work in my main color. So I'm switching to my contrast color, and then I'm going to now weave in the main color. So I'm just, to do that, I just go under and then knit the new color. Knit the new color, go under. You can do this for however many you want. There's no rhyme or reason to it. I do somewhere between 6 to 8. Okay, I am completely done now with my rose gold. Okay, so I've worked my 2 rows of stockinette in my contrast color. So now I'm going to start my decreases for my toe. So the idea here is that we are slowly decreasing in a rounded fashion to form to our toes, because the tip of our toe is quite a bit smaller than this part of our toe here. So to do that, we gradually decrease. There are many ways to decrease for a toe, and not one of them is wrong. You can do it however you like to do it. I'm just showing you what has worked for me and what my go-to is. And I'll say as well that even if the pattern calls for a different way to decrease, I will typically still go back to my favorite way of decreasing. I like the way it fits. I like the way that it looks. And it's something that I've memorized because I've done it so much. So again, do not be afraid to deviate from your pattern if you know you like something or if you want to try something different. You know, it really, for this kind of stuff, it doesn't matter. Have fun with it. Do what you like. Try something different. But this is how I do it. So I will this is written up in the pattern, but I do a decrease round, I knit 3 rows, do another decrease round, knit 2 rows, do another decrease round, knit 1 row, and then from there on decrease every row until I get to, in a fingering weight sock, it's until I get to 8 stitches. For a sport weight sock, I will go until I get to 6 stitches left on each needle. Or I guess in this case it would be 3 stitches on each needle because I'm using double point. So a total of 12 stitches is what I'm going down to. So here's how I do my decreases. I knit 1, After I knit this one, I'm going to work a decrease, and I do a slip, slip, knit. So I'm going to slip, knitwise, slip, knitwise, insert my left hand needle into these 2 stitches on the front strand here, and then knit them together. I'm going to work across the entire front of this sock. So I'm going to work until I get to 3 stitches before the end, because I want to work my decrease right here. On this side, I want my stitches to knit more this way, so I'm going to do a knit 2 together. Go through both of those front 2 strands and knit. And then knit your last stitch there. So you can see that this one is going more this way here, that this knit 2 together has a different slant to it. And that's why we do a slip, slip, knit on one side and then a knit 2 together on the other. Okay, so that was the front of the sock, and now I need to mirror that on the back. So I'm at the beginning here of the back side of my sock. I'm going to knit 1, slip, slip, and knit these 2 together, and then knit across. Just one more there. And then I'm going to do a knit 2 together right here. Put your needle into the front of both of these stitches, just as if to knit, and knit them both together as one. And then knit this last stitch there. Okay, so now, I did a decrease round. Now I'm going to do 3 rows of stockinette stitching. That's it, just 3 rows, and then I'll do another decrease round. So I'm going to continue in this fashion as the pattern says. Again, all of these instructions are in the pattern, but I wanted to go over a decrease round with you. I will meet you guys back here when I'm down to 6 stitches on the front, 6 stitches on the back, for a total of 12 stitches on all of my needles. All right, so I'm almost done here on the decreases of my toe, and I was just going to work the last round with you and show you how I set up the needles to close my toe. So I've been working in the round still, but when you get to the end of your toe, it's open at the end, so you have to close that up, and there's a stitch called the Kitchner stitch that you work, and it closes it all up, and it looks as if you have just knit everything. So you can't even tell. So again, I'm doing a decrease round, knit 1, a slip, slip, knit, knit 1. So I have 3 stitches on that needle. Now what I do is I need to get back to working with just 2 needles instead of 3 even, because that's how we're gonna work our Kitchner stitch, is just over 2 needles. So I'm going to just put all my stitches, all my front stitches on one needle and all my back stitches on one needle. And I think because there's so few stitches, it just still kind of works. It is a little cumbersome, but it does work. Okay, so there we go. So I have half my front stitches here, all on one needle. I'm gonna work the back side just the same. I'm knitting 1, slip, slip, knit, knit 1. So I'm just going to continue on onto this needle. This is where it gets a little fiddly, because typically you can't really work in the round with just 2 needles, but again, I think because there's just so few stitches here, it just kind of works. So there we go. So I have 6 stitches on my front needle, 6 stitches on my back needle. My yarn is coming off of my back needle, and now I am going to do my Kitchner stitch. To do your Kitchner stitch, now this is not necessarily a tutorial for the Kitchner stitch, but I'm going to just walk through how I do it, and maybe that will just encourage you to to do something a little differently than what you've done before. I don't know. So you cut your yarn. You're all done. I'm going to grab a darning needle. I'm going to thread my needle. So I'm done knitting now. I'm just sewing up my toe with the Kitchner stitch. So thread your needle. So to do a Kitchner stitch, you are basically knitting your stitches together seamlessly. So if you look here, there's a row of knit stitches all the way through. I mean, I can tell, but to most people, you would not be able to even tell where the front of your sock and the back of your sock was, because it is just seamless all the way up. It looks like one continuous knit stitch all the way up. So to do that, we are going to work a knit stitch with our needle throughout every stitch. There is a little setup that you have to do to get started. And that is because each stitch you are working twice, one for the right leg and one for the left leg. So as we work this stitch here and pull it off the needle and finish it, then we start the first process of the next stitch. Well, I don't have a stitch here to work that first process, so I have to do a setup row. And what I'm simply going to do is I'm going to put my needle in to purl, slide it through, and then in this back stitch right here, I will put my needle in as if to knit and pull it through. And what you'll notice is that that is the process that we're doing on every second stitch as we work the repeat. So here is the repeat. On my front needle, I will knit, put my needle in to knit, slide the stitch off, and in the same motion, I do kind of put my thumb here to hold this stitch. I'm going to put my darning needle in as if to purl. Put it through that front leg there and just give it a little tug. You don't want to tug too hard because you want the stitches to be uniform. So I'm going to now, working on this back needle here, put my darning needle in as if to purl, slide that stitch off, and then put my needle in to knit and pull through. I'm going to do that for all of my stitches here. I just have a few stitches, so it really does go pretty quick. Put my needle in to knit, slide off, into purl, come through. I just make sure that my yarn doesn't get bunched up here or doesn't get caught there. That's why I'm pulling it and stretching it a little bit. Purl, slide off, knit, stay on. And then it's the opposite for this one. Knit, off, purl, on. The back needle, purl off, knit on. As you get more familiar with this, you'll learn how to read your knitting, and it will become more intuitive. I felt like when I first started this Kitchner stitch, I had to actually have the card printed out right in front of me. It did not come natural or easy, and then just as I worked it more and more, I could kind of see what I was doing and why I was doing it, and that just comes with time. It wasn't anything that one person said necessarily or showed me, or a tutorial that I watched. It just happened with time. There we go. So I'm working these last couple stitches here, purl off, knit on. So I've already done the first half of these stitches, so I only have to do the second half. So knit off, and then there is no purl on because there isn't another stitch, so then I'm just going to purl off from this back stitch. and pull my yarn through. So there we go. There's my Kitchner stitch. It's all closed up now, and I've just woven this yarn in to make these knit stitches. So now to weave in the ends, I'm just going to put my hand in here. And this is what I do for my toe. So with my darning needle, I'm just going to push this all the way into the middle of the sock, or inside the sock. So I pick a stitch right around here, give or take, to put my needle in. And then now with this hand inside my sock, I'm going to pull that needle through. I don't want to pull it too hard to make it tight there, but I just want it to lay nice and flat. And then I will inside out my sock and weave in my ends. So I like to weave in my ends on the top of my sock. Instead, I could do it on the foot of my sock, but my feet are a little sensitive, and I would much rather not have to be stepping on that extra yarn and just have it lay at the top of my foot. So to do this, I just find some stitches and I will mirror them. First, I'm going to go down a couple rows just so I have more row to work with here. And then I'll show you what I do here. I'll just go down one more. Okay, so I mirror these purl bumps. So I'm going to go mirror this purl bump right here and go up through 2 stitches here. And then I'm going to mirror this purl bump and work down and go back into that first one that I just came out of. And I kind of pull it as I go so that it doesn't get pulled taut. I'm going to mirror this loop right here, this one. So go in here and up. I'm mirroring this guy here, so it goes right down into there and then down. And honestly, this does not have to be perfect. I like to weave in and out enough times so that it's not going anywhere. Before I cut it off, I just kind of give it a little tug. I leave a little bit of a tail, which kind of works itself out. And there we go. I'm going to go ahead and weave in all of my other ends. Now, on this one here, I have woven in these essentially to close up this little gap here. I just give a little tug on both sides. I don't force it. I just give a little tug on both sides, and then I will pick up this yarn, put it through my darning needle. Since I'm pink, I'm going to work down here on the pink. I do feel like it is already partially woven in. I know some people will just cut it straight from there, but I just don't feel comfortable with that. So again, I'm just mimicking these bumps here and where the yarn is going, and you cannot even see it on the other side. So I just do that a couple times. Cut it off and go to the next one. Now for anything that is around a 2x2 rib, let me show you what I do here. If I'm around a 2x2 rib, I will simply follow the spiral of the rib. So I'm going to hold my yarn here, or hold this stitch down, and then go in to the next and to the next. I'm just kind of wrapping my yarn around a leg of a stitch. I'll pull that through. And then I've just come over here now to another row and I work back a couple stitches because I want to go in different directions so that it's not easy for that yarn to slide out as they're being worn. There you go. So now if you look on this side, you cannot even see where I wove anything in. I wove it in on right through here. And then on my toe, I'll show you. So this is the pink that I wove in. And you cannot even see. I wove it in right here. Can't even see it. So that's how I weave in my ends. I'll finish weaving in my ends, but that is the conclusion of our tutorial for these sport weight socks. Feel free to message me with any questions that you have. Hit the subscribe button. Share this with all of your knitting friends if they want to also see how to knit some sport weight socks or just get some tips and tricks. I feel like it's always a great idea to watch multiple videos because how I say something may speak to one person and how somebody else says something may speak to somebody else. So that's just how we learn and how we gather information. So have a great day, guys, and enjoy your socks.